is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What's up, y'all? This is One Royal Way here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield, Jordan Foote, and Josh Keiser joining me as always. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a Monday after one of the best sports weekends of my life. Started off with a Mizzou over Kansas State win. That was sweet, despite trying to absolutely ruin it at the end of it. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the win. Chiefs win in Jacksonville. Your boy went 2-1 in his fantasy football, with the only loss coming in a dynasty league that I'm trying to take in anyway. So jokes on everyone else that's winning. And made the championship in my Final Fantasy baseball league. So it's an A+ sports weekend for your boy.
Nice. I got kicked out. Not kicked out. I got eliminated in my Survivor League because I picked the LA Chargers to beat the Tennessee Titans, who I don't like either of those teams. But I was like, if I'm going to pick LA, I'm going to go for it now instead of later, before they charger all over themselves. And they did it anyway.
They have expedited the chargering this year.
Yeah. And I was like, maybe they'll wait, and they did not wait. So I'm officially out after 2 weeks. But I also had a losing record in fantasy football, and the Rams lost after competing at least against the 49ers. So not the best sports weekend for me, but it was still good, and I'm happy to be back.
My sports weekend started on Sunday because
we don't talk about
Why?
Saturday.
What happened? What happened to Saturday?
what I witnessed in Stillwater, Oklahoma on Saturday night was an affront to God and every football fan, anyone that enjoys Oklahoma State football. It was one of the worst Oklahoma State sporting events I've ever seen. And I was in Manhattan to watch them lose 48-0 last year. This was worse. They
rough.
paid South Alabama $300,000 to come in and kick the piss out of them in their own stadium.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Horrible. On the bright side, I did shoot an 81 at a Lakeside Memorial golf course there in Stillwater, so I at least had that going for me on Saturday morning. But other than that, man, that was rough.
We got to see the Royals take a series against the Astros.
Hey,
There you go.
yeah. How about that, man? Like, we saw. I think we talked a little bit about it last week. Like, oh, they're playing the Astros. Oh shit.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the Astros in their last two series lost 2 out of 3 to the A's, and then lost 2 out of 3 to the Royals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a rough stretch there.
That's how you lose a playoff spot.
Yeah, for a team that's fighting for playoff spot right now, that is not what you want to see. But that's exactly what bad teams do in September. If they have a playoff team on their schedule, they just play spoiler. And I don't know why it happens, but every single year you see stuff like that.
I'm used to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we'll take the win. So we've grown accustomed to that. That's ridiculous.
Embracing that spoiler role.
Yeah. But we only got a couple weeks left. Only a few episodes left, which is wild. We've been doing this for almost 6 months now. But we appreciate everybody still tuning in here in the middle of football season. We can't thank Kansas City Strength and Conditioning enough for sponsoring this show. Day one supporters here at KCSN. Be sure to check them out if you have a baseball or softball player in the area that needs a place to train. It's one of the best in the Kansas City area for that. For our weekly thoughts here, I'll start us off. We all get to news, kind of some of the news and notes after this. But one thing I noticed is Bobby Witt Jr. has kind of gotten back on a heater over the last 10 days or so. He had a stretch at the beginning of the month that was kind of rough after really 2 months of high-level baseball in July and August. It kind of came back to earth a little bit. He's picked right back up. And one thing I thought was interesting, he's walking 9% since the calendar turned to September. He has obviously not been a high walk guy, but starting to see the ball a little bit better. And I think it's some of what I talked about at the beginning of August, that some of it is I think he's beginning to realize dudes are terrified to pitch to him. And it's starting to get to that point. And a lot of times he's walking and then it's turning into a double because he's stealing second immediately. The stolen base numbers are really starting to come back for him. He's got 48 now, I believe. Which is just an insane number.
Bonkers.
He's one away from 30 home runs. So he will have the first 30-30 season in Royals history, and it might be close to a 30-50, which is just remarkable. The other thing I thought was interesting when looking at his numbers, since the line of demarcation that I've used really for Bobby Witt Jr. is the walk-off grand slam on July 28th. But since that day, he's striking out less than 13% of the time. So he is doing all of this damage at the plate, both power, contact, speed, everything, and he's cutting his strikeout rate. In modern baseball, that is incredible because so many guys are willing to sacrifice some of the strikeouts for the power, and he's not doing that. He's finding a way to do the inverse, which is very uncommon, and I think it speaks to a lot of what he's able to do as a young hitter. And if he's just now scratching the surface and he manages to be a guy that strikes out around 15 to 17%, he gets that walk rate up to about 8%. It doesn't have to be substantial for him. I mean, that's 30-50 might be scratching the surface for what he's able to do.
Yeah.
It's been really impressive to see what he's been able to do down the stretch.
Well, and even in the month of August, he walked just under 7% of the time, which is an improvement over his season numbers. And he struck out 10.8% of the time. And it's all with a 303 BABIP. So like he's not running into a ton of luck. He's just genuinely putting together good at bats, putting the bat on the ball, tapping into the raw power, using his athleticism, and making better decisions at the plate. And when you add on top of that, pitchers getting scared of him and realizing, oh shit, like this guy's arrived now. He's actually good. You can't just throw fastballs to him and hope that he can't catch up to him and realize that it's a fastball. He's been damn good. And like, I've been kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop with him, as I do with pretty much every member of the Kansas City Royals organization. It really hasn't. Like, he's just been objectively awesome for the better part of 2 months now, which really 3 months, which is pretty crazy for him and pretty crazy for the Royals. So even if they don't have a star level player outside of him, he has pretty much established himself right now as that caliber player.
Which is probably the most important thing that happened this season. It's absolutely, progression on his part, and that needed to happen. We came into this year saying that Bobby Witt Jr. is the most important player on this team, to this organization, since George Brett. I mean, over the last 2 decades, potentially. So they need him to hit. And he has ascended to what we kind of think and what we had heard to expect about Bobby Witt Jr. and his progression and development to that point is the most important thing that happened this year. The other part about that, Joel, is like the rise in average and the lower of the K rate didn't sacrifice any of his power either. He was still hitting for plenty of power, still hitting those extra base hits, even with the speed still. But it's just been very impressive that he's been able to do that, make that transition. And yeah, I hope we're only scratching the surface for him for sure.
He's currently at 5.5 F4, which puts him 9th in all of Major League Baseball.
Where is he in the AL?
Among AL, he is 1, 2,
Shohei.
5th. He's 5th.
Okay. What's the DPI picks? Top three voting?
Yeah. And MVP, like finalists are top 3, and I think the MVP voting goes up to 20. I bet he ends up in probably that 8 to 10 range MVP voting. Shohei's going to win it, so it's just a matter of, okay, let's figure out 2 through 20. But just looking at this, it's kind of wild too. Corey Seager is posting a 6-win season with 107 games played. Absolutely bonkers.
That is.
That's insane. Moving on to just some news and notes really quick to drop today. There was a pretty significant roster transaction. Brad Keller and Brady Singer are done for the season. I think they called it lower lumbar tightness, so back tightness for Brady Singer. That explains some of the velocity dip. They didn't seem concerned about being an arm issue, which is a good thing. So hopefully he's just able to rest and come back next year. The Brad Keller thing sucks because it's a 60-day, and it is symptoms of thoracic outlet syndrome, which he developed earlier in the season, which was one of the major setbacks that he had. I think he only threw 1 game since coming back. The thing about thoracic outlet is that could be a career ender, like as we know it. So that is just the one thing that is one of the worst things that happened for the Royals this year and for Brad Keller. He was in a contract year. It looked like he made some significant improvements. Was probably going to find his way to maybe a 1-year, a multi-year contract, if not with the Royals, with another team. And it just went to hell for him so fast. The walks came back, clearly had some issues, and it was the shoulder and thoracic outlet. Hopefully he's able to rehab and come back. And it's probably not going to be for the Royals, but just I hope he gets back on a big league mound because I would hate to see a career end like this for Brad Keller.
I wonder if they do a deal like they did with Brent's, like the 2-year deal. I was going to bring that up, and then we'll see where you are.
See, the difference is, though, guy is much easier to come back from TJ than it is thoracic outlet.
Yeah.
Sure. We've seen, like, Matt Harvey had thoracic outlet syndrome.
You know what Hochevar had?
Hochevar had it. Nate Carnes had it, if you remember that. It's kind of a deep cut, but I think Steven Strasburg had it at the end, too.
Did Josh Staumont get
thoracic outlet?
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. I mean, it could... Some guys, they're able to come back and bounce back from it, and some, it ends their career. So,
hopefully he's young enough to get bounced back.
Yeah, exactly. The other one, Matt Beatty, was designated for assignment. Probably a move that could have been done a long time ago, but with some of the injuries at first base, they needed bodies. And Tyler Cropley, who was a phantom big leaguer, goes up for the Toronto series, gets DFA'd outright into AAA. He's back. He's in the big league lineup. He took big league at-bats tonight against Cleveland. He doesn't have a hit, but he did record an RBI on a sacrifice fly, so that's cool for him. A guy that bounced around the minor leagues since like 2018. A solid catcher. To see him get his opportunity, even if it's just I don't even know if you can call it a cup of coffee, like an espresso shot at the big league level.
You got to smell it, like you got the ambiance of the coffee.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year, oh, by the way, your last like 2 to 3 weeks of the big league season, your catchers are going to be Tyler Cropley and Logan Porter, I would have been like, what happened? But also Salvador Perez went on the 7-day IL with concussion-like symptoms. I don't think he actually has a concussion. I think this is really just dude, go sit down because you're getting your ass beat behind the plate. Like, please just shut it down. We don't need to risk further injury for Salvi, which sucks that basically it probably will end the season. I don't think we're going to see Salvi over these next couple of weeks, but yeah.
Give me more Logan Porter at bats. Give him. I need them all.
Shout out to that guy, man.
Yeah.
And I think it was the lineup might have been on Sunday. He was the oldest guy in the lineup.
Yeah.
And he had the least amount of big league service time.
That's crazy to think that's where they are, especially, I mean, they've got like Dairon Blanco, and they've got guys that
Dairon Blanco was 30.
Right, yeah. So it is interesting, but it is kind of, I mean, that's where you would expect to be at this point, right?
Hopefully that doesn't get clipped. There will be a certain somebody that takes...
Oh, we don't have to talk about all that.
Yeah.
Dairon Blanco, you're the greatest. Love you, Dairon.
I'm going to go through a shit ton of numbers and kind of tee Josh up for something because like my final point is centered around it. So I just checked in on some Royals like savant rankings as a team. Power stats, the good, 3rd in line drive rate, 6th in hard hit rate, 10th in expected slugging, 10th in average exit velos, like they're hitting the ball hard. The bad is their actual slugging percentage is 22nd. They're 26th in home runs. Part of that, obviously, playing at Kauffman. The batting general stats, there's a giant discrepancy. They're 8th in expected batting average. They are 21st in actual. Yep. And then 28th in OBP, 29th in walks. So, like, the offense, we're going to touch on this here in a second. Not great in terms of team rankings overall. Plate discipline, 4th highest swing percentage of the zone, 4th highest swing percentage overall, 6th highest pitch swing, or first pitch swing percentage, chase rate, 7th highest, whiff rate, 10th highest, bad decisions as a team, kind of the ambush approach, kind of free swinging. Still doing it. Pitching, the walks went from 2nd most to 10th most from last year to this year. First pitch strike percentage 30th to 21st, so they did improve there. The bad, they're still bottom 5 worst in batting average, fewest strikeouts, opposing slugging percentage. Like, the pitching hasn't made much progress on a huge scale. But all that's to say, their general hitting stats since the All-Star break, they have the most stolen bases in baseball, not necessarily a hitting stat, but it's by 11. So they're getting crazy on the base pads. They're 8th in batting average, 8th in slugging percentage, 11th in runs, 13th in isolated power, 14th in BABIP, 16th best WRC plus, and 18th most home runs. So since the All-Star break, 2 months plus, a little over 2 months, Royals have been a middle-of-the-pack offense. They've been an average offense, if not slightly above average. That will play if they can get some better pitching. And I remember last year, and I was curious, it seemed like they had a better second half. And they did, but they were like 5, 6, 7 spots worse in all of those categories in the second half of last year. So like it's not as fluky of an improvement. I don't think you can squint and with the proper development and offseason moves, see the Royals having a pretty decent offense next year. They're getting Vinny Pasquantino back. They could sign maybe one viable bat to throw in the outfield. They have Bobby Witt Jr. being a star for potentially a full season. I don't really know what all of this means on the pitching side. I'm kind of going to let Josh go through that. But offensively, yes, they haven't been good. No, I don't expect them to necessarily be top 10 next year, but could they be in between 10 and 20 instead of ranking lower than that on a lot? I definitely think they could.
Yeah, I think just overall in general, I don't have a lot of numbers. It's basically the same as yours. Basically, I think in general, they could be a top 10 offense in the major leagues next year with a little bit more development, with like meaningful matchups being played and the return of Vinny Pasquantino, obviously. But I think at that point, we're going to talk about the bullpen tonight and kind of see how that could shape up a little bit and how it could be built. But I'm ready to throw every dime, every trade piece, every consideration in the offseason on starting pitching because of that. I feel like this bullpen can be turned around pretty quickly with some internal options, but also this lineup looks like an actual, productive offense. If they can maintain this identity, figure out, just how much they're going to lean towards the free swinging and run the bases really well and have middle of the order bats be able to drive them in. If that's where we are, that's an absolute competitive team and something that we haven't really seen. Doesn't really seem like those championship runs were really known for being offense driven. So I feel like that's a pretty big opportunity, but here we are, a tale as old as time, where I'm already convincing myself that the Royals are going to be better than they actually will be next year. And I'm already taking the bait. It's already happening. Time is a flat circle.
So are you just mainlining the Kool-Aid at this point? Like you're not just drinking, like it's just
I'm not
in?
No, not mainlining. I am, again, getting whiffs, giving me the subtle nodes of success and championship.
Okay, let's say they have a average offseason on whatever percentile scale you want to use. Like they don't make any crazy moves. They don't have an abject disaster of an offseason. How many games do the Kansas City Royals win next year? We're going to ask again at the end of season show probably, but like I'm just very quickly before we hit a break, like what are you guys thinking? Because I'm at like 60 to 65. Yeah.
I think 65 to 68, I think is what we're looking at.
I think that is the linear upward
development path. Yeah.
That's basically where I feel. I was probably going to be probably closer to 70, but it's somewhere between 65 and 70 in my head.
I dig it.
Yeah, I mean, that basically, I think, is more of in line with like the 50th percentile outcome, like the most realistic without like an unprecedentedly bad April and May. They probably can get there just fine. We just hope that, they don't have that type of situation where we have.
Do you think if they did spend anything on like let's say a B tier starting pitcher, just one, and then your usual thing, do you think that goes up at all, or is it more, what is that signing really going to be without knowing what is there now?
It depends on how they're going to divvy up the rotation. Like, is Cole Reagan's your ace? I think if that's the case, and they get it like
he shouldn't be, but he will be, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds bad. He shouldn't be in terms of like they should do something to remedy that, but like for their purposes, he's going to be, and he's going
to be that.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and then you can sign somebody that's like maybe your 2 or 3. Brady Singer ends up as your 2 or 3. Trying to think of who else you could throw in the rotation right now. Like it's kind of tricky.
Jordan Lyles.
I mean, Jordan Lyles will probably be your 4 or 5. I mean, they're paying him, so he's probably 4 or 5. Even though I would wholly disagree with that. We talked about that last week.
Yep. I think Lynch is probably there.
4.
Yeah.
And then you're filling one more spot with maybe a non-roster invite that, either that or like an Angel Zerpa with a full-on season.
Zerba, Marsh,
We're gonna talk about
Veneziano.
Or something like that. I don't know.
They keep doing what they're doing. I mean, they're piecemealing that fifth and really the fourth rotation spot every time.
I mean, it could truly be a 4-man rotation with an opener and a bulk, and I think that might be fine. Like, it could be a scenario where, like, we'll talk a little bit more about the bullpen, but like Steven Cruz as an opener with Jordan Lyles, face the lineup twice, turn it over, and go.
Yeah, if that's your fifth spot, that's solid.
Yeah.
I think that's real solid.
Yeah, like I think that could be a scenario where we see that. I've liked the way that they've utilized the opener this year, and it hasn't really blown up on them too often. So I think finding the right combination of guys. They've had so many injuries, they've had to do it more than they probably want to. But if they wanted to basically turn it into a turn in the rotation, it could work that way.
Do you remember that time with under previous management where it's like, can we have an opener, please?
Yeah.
And then Q's like, we'll give you one on Wednesday, we'll give you one on Thursday. And guess what? Monday, here they come again.
Yeah. I mean, they've had so many damn injuries to the rotation. They've had to. And one other thing I forgot to mention earlier before we break, the two roster guys that came in for Brady Singer and Brad Keller, Anthony Veneziano and John Bolin. Congrats to those guys. We're going to see those guys in a limited sample, and maybe they factor into the rotation and bullpen next year too. And we're going to talk about that right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We appreciate you guys hanging with us. So we're going to try and do our best with 2 weeks left in the big league season to look at how are we going to build the bullpen in 2024. That would imply 8 spots. I think it's 8 because of the 26 man. So where do you guys think internally who should be penciled in right now? Because there's going to be guys that are already in right now that I think have, as generally as you can say it, I think earned a spot. Shut up, Jordan.
Don't you do this? You're gonna.
I was going to say, man, fire everyone.
No, I've got 3 names that I think I would definitely put in the bullpen next year. Then I've got 3 with a question mark in parentheses. So I've potentially got 6 guys that I would not think would be terrible decisions to put in the Kansas City Royals 2024 bullpen. Then I've got 5 more, 6 more, 7 more that is one big shrug emoji. So I'm not completely out on everybody, but yeah, the list is not very long for me, I don't think.
So the names that come to mind for me, at least right now, are, I know it's been a rough since the deadline, but I think Carlos Hernandez is going to be in there.
Yeah.
James MacArthur, I think, has actually solidified himself fairly decently. So if you look at the season-long numbers in the full 16 2/3 innings that he's pitched, it's a 6.48 ERA with a 3.92 FIP. And that was because he had one of the worst MLB debuts I have ever seen in my entire life. He gave up on June 28th. He came up and he gave up in 1 inning 7 runs, did not record a strikeout. He walked a guy, gave up a home run in 10 batters. I mean, it was horrific. He goes back down to Omaha, comes back up on August 6th. And if you take out the MLB debut from hell, in 15 2/3 innings, it's a 2.87 ERA with a 2.94 FIP.
And 12 strikeouts to 1 walk. He's been great.
He's been really good.
Yeah.
And so whatever adjustments that he made down in Omaha, or just flushing that, I think and he has shown some high leverage ability too. Closed out a game, came in as a fireman in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. I think there's something there with him. Clearly, they saw something with him when they traded for him mid-season, and it's coming to fruition at least right now. I know it was a small sample, but I think John McMillan showed the best back-end stuff in this bullpen. Hopefully, he gets to get a couple more outings before the season's over, once maybe Omaha's season ends. Who else are you guys thinking?
I think I've got Carlos Hernandez as definitely. I've got James MacArthur as definitely. I've got Alec Marsh as definitely, and I've probably been the most, not anti, but like low on Alec Marsh. But like as a reliever, he has an ERA under 3 now, and he's not giving up nearly as many home runs. His strikeout rate was already great. It's even better. Like they have that opener thing that could work for him. Like I think you at least give him a shot in the spring and see what happens. Outside of that, I think Lesky has shared this thought too. Taylor Clark hasn't been very good, but he's been good enough that like they probably keep him around. And then the question mark guys for me, Jackson Kowar has a 4.91 ERA in 20 games. Since he came back up on August 17th, though, he's given up 12 hits, 6 runs, 14 strikeouts in 14 innings with a 3.86 ERA. Like I was listening to Vern's pregame show literally on Tuesdays, we're recording this. He just seems to get it in terms of the adjustments he's been making. Like he's been tinkering with a bunch of shit, so I'm not going to completely get wrapped up in the results. The raw stuff is still too good. The draft profile is still technically intact, where I would lean he makes it. I would personally keep him in the bullpen and at least give him a shot. And then we brought up Zerpa. He is my 6th and the 3rd guy that has a question mark. So that's my list of 6.
You guys basically hit the same guys. I got some nuggets on these guys, though. John McMillan struck out at least 2 guys while walking 0 in all 4 of his appearances this year, which was awesome. Jason MacArthur, since his call-up in September, 9 2/3, 2.98 xFIP, 1 base runner in that time. And that includes tonight, which, as we're talking about him, Andy Rogers tweeted, and I quote, "James MacArthur is a dude. Holy smokes." So I had to go find out why. Well, Carlos Hernandez is a massive problem still, but he basically struck out Jose Ramirez with a runners on. Not sure what the situation was, but it's hard enough to strike out Jose Ramirez.
He's the ultimate royal killer.
Yes. Yep. And then struck out Cole Calhoun and Ramon Laureano to end the 8th and preserve a 7-6 lead. So he is apparently a dude in Andy Rogers' eyes. I also had Carlos Hernandez stuff still is there. Steven Cruz I have as in. He has no runs surrendered in 5 of his 6 appearances, which is massive. So that's awesome. Walk rate is low. Command will always be an issue with Steven Cruz, but right now he's keeping the low. And Austin Cox is also in my bullpen because he's my best friend.
He's come back from a torn ACL, though.
And partially torn MCL. But, like, by midseason, he'll be in that picture.
Yeah. Right. Why is it torn officially? Because...
Yeah, it was a full tear.
That's what I thought. And Fangraphs has it as a sprained knee. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's just torn.
Somebody missed the news cycle. I think like Cruz is in there. Colin Snyder technically could be, but I just embarrassed with him. Like he's in the next. Tucker Davidson technically could be around. Dylan Coleman is still in the organization, but like
Dylan Coleman is going to get Dylan Coleman this spring will tell us a lot.
Yeah,
like if he shoves in the spring, he's going to be in the bullpen. But if it's still a lot of the same issues, I think they're either going to cut bait or he's just going to end up in Omaha. What do you guys think about Anthony Veneziano if he shows?
That was the one name I was going to bring up. Yeah, I'd say yes.
And
somewhere in the pitching staff and Bolin.
Yeah.
In the staff, yes.
And what's going to be interesting about a lot of these guys is I think there is a lot of potential with these guys to mix and match openers and bulk guys.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them can give you that quality. Because like Steven Cruz, tonight notwithstanding with the 4 walks, his other opener appearance was disgusting. Like he looks the part with that type of role, or 7th, 8th inning. He was another guy that I thought of as well. That I think it's not spectacular right now, but I think you give him another offseason, he's gonna be a guy. Jackson Kowar, man, I can't quit him. I just can't. Yeah. And I think some of it is kind of the anti of what we've seen with some other guys when it comes to making adjustments. He is all in on doing whatever he can he has ditched his curveball for a slider last year. He started mixing in a sinker with it because his fastball sucks. He's tried to work his changeup differently in counts. He's completely dropped his arm angle down to like a low 3/4. That seems to make his stuff even more effective. If you look at the Savant chart, just from the beginning of this year to now, it's substantial. So a full off season of him actually throwing with that arm angle, I'll be curious to see what he looks like in the spring.
I think he's also, Jordan, I think you mentioned it, and Joel, you mentioned it too, but he's tinkering with a lot of things, and that is also including his pitch usage. Yeah. His last few starts have been way more predominantly change as a primary pitch. He has a very good changeup. Obviously, I think Hudler calls it a screwball all the time, but very good changeup, and he's starting to kind of lean on it a little bit more. The metrics aren't great, but the fact that he's kind of going to that a little bit more, his K rate is pretty much the same since he got the call up, and that's when the adjustments kind of really started to take shape. Walk percentage is a little bit up, but his ground ball percentage is up like 10%. So it makes a lot of sense if you're starting to throw a lot of downward motion balls. It's going to get more ground balls. So it's good to see he's having any success at all. But yeah, for sure. Two names that I thought that we can't forget about: Taylor Hearn. I'm just going to keep bringing his name up.
Maybe. I can see it. Yeah.
Since the demotion, 9 appearances, 12 innings pitched, a 29.6% K rate, and a 452 BABIP. Don't know what to do with that. That's very high. But he's only surrendered 1 error run in those appearances. So keeping runners from scoring is not just a stat, but it's also an ability as well. Jake Brentz is going to be coming off of. He's coming off of TJ. He had 2 2/3 of live bullets being pitched to this year. So he is kind of making his way back, and I think he's got the inside track on a bullpen slot next year too. So Jake Brentz could definitely be in. Another name that I kind of, speaking of Steven Cruz, Evan Sisk kind of ended the year in Omaha pretty well. He didn't have very good overall numbers, but I would be curious to see what he looks like here in spring training as well. I think he could definitely be in the mix.
A quick note from Annie. She tweeted in 8 scoreless appearances since being recalled on September 1st. Mick Arthur has retired 31 of 32 batters he's faced. He came into the 8th with a 1-run lead, runners on second and third, no outs, and he struck out all 3 batters. So he's just been, as the kids would say, him since he's been coming back up. Like who knows how long it's going to last. Obviously this level won't, but the Royals might have found something special in him. So I'm with you guys. He deserves to be in that picture for sure.
He just got the pitching ninja treatment too with the gif of strikeouts, and that curveball is as advertised. Holy hell! Some external names, just if the Royals do want to go and kind of do an Aroldis Chapman sort of thing, like a 1 year, and either if they magically are good, then you have a guy in the back end, or you just flip them at the deadline and do your next Cole Reagan steal. They're not going to get some of these guys on the upper end, but like an Andrew Chafin could be kind of interesting as a lefty. He's bounced around a bunch, but has always, been pretty effective. Kirby Yates could actually be an interesting one. He's in his mid-30s, really resurrected his career this year after a few years off with injury, but kind of has gotten back to that 2019, 2018 San Diego Padres year with the Braves. It's a club option, so I don't know if they'll bring him back, but if he's available, that might be a move that I would make. Jose Leclerc, it's another club option, but he's been a guy that's closed out a lot of games in his career, and maybe a change of scenery could work for him because he's been kind of up and down. Matt Moore, quietly been one of the better relievers in baseball for the last couple of years with the Angels and the Rangers, and now I think he's going to go pitch for the Marlins. Maybe you could go and get him as a lefty option. So there are names there that I think are within reason for the Royals if they want to go, and as they have all of these young dudes or guys that are super inconsistent, getting a veteran in there that what you're going to get pretty much every single day, I think goes a long way for this team.
I've got a few that you didn't bring up. Nick Martinez, they have a club option for $6 million. Then if it gets to 9, I think his is 8. But he's had a pretty decent year, 3.73 ERA. I think Josh and I, on one of the shows you weren't here for, brought up Michael Fulmer as like an early age free agent, obviously. Could eat up some innings. Archie Bradley would be like the buy low of all buy low candidates, has had a disastrous year. Jordan Hicks has been pretty good, so maybe pricing himself out of whatever range they'd be going for. Brad Hand has been bad this year, but great before this year. Mutual option for $7 million. I would assume the club doesn't pick that up, and it would not be mutually agreed upon. Dylan Floro, Emilio Pagan, Chad Green working his way back from TJ, and he's barely been pitching this year, but really good the 3 years before that. So they've got options, man. And it's, again, how much do they want to spend? Do they want a reclamation project? Do they want a Fulmer type guy that maybe you could make him back into starts a few games, but primarily a bullpen pitcher? Like, they've got options, and they also don't have a full bullpen that absolutely has to be set coming into next year.
And another name on this list too is Ryan Stanek, who has some familiarity with Q from his time in Tampa, and he was the guy that really made the opener a thing for them. So he has that, plus a lot of time in high leverage situations for Houston over the last couple of years. All right, guys,
I had a game myself, so not so fast, my friend. I also had Emilio Pagan. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys this year, but he does have a history of it, so they could, find a little bit of gold there. He did spend 2022 with Bove in Minnesota, which I think could be a little bit of a connection as well. And he doesn't throw a slider, which we have seen success. The Royals add a slider to a guy and unlock something from him. So maybe Pagan could do that, increase his K rate and effectiveness as well. I had also Archie Bradley as a reclamation project. Also get him a slider. Should be able to get him on a spring training invite contract. And one you guys haven't said, but is a name that all of us know, and you may not be ready for it, but Shelby Miller he's on my list. Really good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's been so great.
1.89 ERA, but it's a 4.59 xFIP. So it might be a little bit of fool's gold there. Walks are a problem, but his opponent average is 118. He has one of the best shaped fastballs, one of the elite extension on the fastball. He's spent the last 4 years tinkering, including time with the Dodgers of all organizations, tinkering, try to make things work. And I just want to see if Sweeney and Bove are able to get their hands on him, what they could do with Shelby Miller and his fastball. So 3 options there. I would also, Guardians in town, Cade Smith in their organization has been pitching in AAA, has had great numbers, 24 years old, right-handed pitcher. Brian Sweeney may be familiar with his game and like it enough to go get him, but in 28 games in AAA, I should say, 38 2/3 of an inning, a 3.14 xFIP, a 37.5% K rate, and 11.3% walk rate. So they would have to do some work with his command. He is Rule 5 eligible this season, so if there's any kind of roster crunch, maybe you give him a call and say, like, hey, what's up with Cade Smith? I'd like to be very interested in him. But that would be another guy that they could potentially target in a trade with Cleveland. So they like pitching a little bit, so maybe that'd be tough to get.
All right, boys, it is that time of the podcast. We're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw 5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away with an instant winner, and DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and use code KCSN. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. With code KCSN, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, Louisiana. 21 and older, ages vary by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Gesundheit, Joel.
Ed is a bear, man.
Yeah. Well done. You nailed that.
Hey, and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And how about Colin Snyder closing out the game for the Royals tonight as we're recording? We were in the chat going, oh my God, who's going to close out this game? Because MacArthur was gone. Cruz had already gone.
Carlos is out.
But yeah. Hey, how about it? That's 2 more wins in a row. And the Royals, gentlemen, that is win number 50 on the season. Start the parade.
Yep. It's ridiculous. We did it, guys.
Start the parade. We got a couple more minor league seasons to talk about here. AAA is not quite done. They have 6 games left. They are 16 games back, so they need like a 200% on their final to get to the playoffs. Is that right? Something like that?
Pretty much. They need the act of God.
Yeah, no kidding. They wrapped up their home schedule this week, splitting a series with Indianapolis. They're in Columbus right now, facing the Clippers, which will end their season. You guys have any thoughts on AAA Omaha? Anything? I don't have much, to be honest with you.
Nope. We'll talk probably deep dive.
Sorry, AAA.
A little bit more.
Oh yeah, we'll deep dive. We'll deep dive on that next week. To kind of a requiem on their season.
There's also
AA
news. The Cooper McKeon.
That is yes.
Carolina League All-Star reliever announced this today. So congrats to Cooper McKeon. He was very, very good for Columbia this year. Eventually did get promoted to Quad Cities. But yeah, shout out to Cooper McKeon for his honors of being a Carolina League All-Star reliever.
Yeah, he kind of flew under the radar this year a little bit now. It was pretty rough when he got to Quad Cities, but in 31 games for Columbia this year, 1.08 ERA, 53 strikeouts and 50 innings, only 10 walks. So definitely a name to watch for next year if he's able to replicate some of that after a pretty rough go there in Quad Cities to start out. But, it is what it is. Sometimes those promotions are not as seamless. But there are a couple of guys that pitched in Northwest Arkansas this year that that shoved in high A and got to Double A and pretty much did the exact same thing. And Mason Barnett, I believe he was named the Baseball America Player of the Year in the Royals organization. So shout out to him. I'll read his stats here in just a second once I get him pulled up. So 114 and 2/3 innings between high A and Double A this year, 137 strikeouts in those innings, was really good at both levels. A name that when the Royals took him, felt like he could be a mid-rotation type guy, and I think he proved that this year. And if he starts the year in Double A and replicates this, we could be talking about him around this time next year as a guy that could get a cup of coffee at the end of 2024 for Kansas City. It's really nice to see that as a testament to some of the changes they made on the development side with pitching. And it's good to see to have at least a couple of guys that are pitchers that we can feel pretty good about moving into to next year.
Yeah, the other guy you kind of mentioned having success after promotion was Chandler Champlain. 14 starts in Northwest Arkansas, but a 3.82 ERA, 21% K rate, and an 8.3% walk rate. Kind of took some steps forward at a rough start and really kind of turned it around in order to, finish the year out pretty strong. So it's a shout out to Chandler Champlain for being one of the high points there in Northwest Arkansas. Not to be confused, and I cannot keep doing this, Northwest Arkansas. I'm going to need you to separate these two, but him and Christian Chamberlain, they just need to be on different rosters because, by God, I cannot. I did this with Nate Eaton and Jake Means for some reason the last few years, and now it's turned to Champlain and Chamberlain. So, but yeah, it was kind of good to see some success, and those guys are definitely two that we could point at to be examples of how this organization could be moving forward with pitching development.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the only pitching high point I had for Double A was Veneziano, and he was only there for 8 starts, but he was too good. 2.13 ERA. He wasn't walking anyone. He was striking out a ton. He got promoted twice over the course of the season from there, which was good for him. He is going to potentially get some work in to close out the season. I think really next year he is a part of the big league team. It's not going to be he spends 2 months down and then comes up. Like, he should be pretty early on having some reps, not necessarily success. We'll see how that goes. But Tyler Tolbert, from a hitting perspective, I think I talked about him either last week or the week before. 10 home runs, 10 triples, 50 RBIs, 50 stolen bases, really round numbers for him, which I absolutely love. easier for me to jot down. 99 WRC plus in 126 games. We've talked about him as a Gerard Dyson type light, where he comes up and steals some bases as a defensive replacement, stuff like that. That is kind of reaching for high points for Double-A, just because guys come through quickly or they come up from Triple-A. Just one of those things.
So one of the guys that I'm still kind of intrigued with, because I like the skill set and the tools, is Peyton Wilson. Can play a little middle infield, can play some center field. He had a 108 WRC plus in Double-A this year. Is 23 years old. Played essentially a full season this year, the 128 games. The power really didn't come around for him, but still slugged 411. So I think he had 30 some odd doubles in there. That's more where his power is going to be from. But if he's able to get back to what he did in High A, where he had 14 homers in 88 games, if he can get into that double digit range, he probably can be he's a switch hitter too, I'm pretty sure. So there is like a super utility type role in here, switch hitter. Like there's a lot, like it's a profile the Royals like. So I could see him finding a way, to get a cup of coffee in the big leagues because of the positional versatility. He's got a decent bat to ball. He's, a decent enough approach, walked about 10%. Well, he struck out 18%. He could have his walk rate almost 7% this year, or strikeout rate 7% this year. If he can build back some power next year, I don't know. I don't think they'll send him back to Double-A unless there's like a positional crunch at Triple-A. But if he gets back some power, he could be really intriguing next year, I think.
Yeah, he gives off gamer vibes. And that's not like,
I think that's
like, it's not like a Nicky Lopez insult. We're like, oh yeah, this guy will never have any power. Haha, he's a gamer because he plays good defense. And his first,
there's at least some legitimate bump to speak of. Like, it's not, like it's got, and this is probably
it's not anemic completely.
No, I think it's more like an Andrew Benintendi type, where the power is a lot of line drive doubles in the gap, and he'll pump a few over the wall, but it's not. You're not going to be able to rely on a ton of power, but I think there's enough juice in the swing to where you can see there is something there. Like there's some power to speak of, even if it's not legit home run power.
Yeah. You want to talk low points? Should we get some harsh truths out there about they're not done, but Beckway, just
I think everybody.
Yeah, everybody expected a lot better from him. 6.67 ERA. He walked 7 guys per 9, just over 7.12. 28 games, 17 starts. It was just a disaster for him. There's really no better way to describe it. The control and command just were not there for him. Not what many expected. I don't think any person was like, oh yeah, this guy's going to do exactly that. People had high hopes for him. He did not deliver at the Double-A level.
I think we expected a little bit more out of Diego Hernandez too. I know he was been on prospect radar list, only 22 years old. He got hurt in the first day of spring training, right? That was him.
Yeah, he dove for that ball and busted up his shoulder and
yeah. So that do a number on anybody's hitting stats unless you're Bryce Harper for some reason, but. I just wanted to see more of him this year. We only got 69 games. So yes, it's very nice.
Not nice.
Not nice. Only 69 games with Diego Hernandez. I don't know what he's going to be long-term. He's definitely not a hit for power guy. Plays really good defense, can run the bases pretty well, but I'm just not real sure what we're going to see from him. I just wanted to see more from him. Is basically the low point ahead for him.
Yeah. So one of the guys I want to talk about is Luca Tresh. There was some promise in 2022. He had a 130 WRC plus in High A, 111 in Double-A, and he comes back this year for a full year in Double-A. 80 weighted runs created plus in 92 games. Popped 10 home runs, but not a lot of other power or like contact to speak of. Like it's kind of weird because I was looking and 80 WRC plus. I'm thinking, oh, this must have struck out a ton. Nope, 19%, walked 11%. So I think it's a quality of contact issue for him, where it's either he pops the ball over the wall or he's like rolling over ground. Like I got to look at ground ball rate because that might tell some of the story if I can find it. He had a ground ball rate of 33% and a fly ball rate of 45%. So he's either popping up or hitting a ball on the ground. is kind of the way I'm looking at it. This is kind of weird because it's not like there are like a ton of red flag signs as to why Luka Tresh was 20% below league average. So I guess we'll see what he does next year. And I don't think they're going to have him repeat AA because it's not like there's a catcher log jam, but like they need catching help at the upper levels. So maybe they just send him to AAA and maybe the super happy fun ball in AAA gets some of his juice back and get to go there. I don't know. Like I'm looking at this and I am confused. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add.
About a 23.
I'm just going to be honest.
AA. I'm looking at this like, is there anything that is like really red flaggy? I don't see anything that really jumps out as like, oh, that's concerning.
Yeah.
So I guess
weird.
we'll see. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. Another guy I want to mention, and this is more like a little bit of like a softer low point, but it is something worth noting, I think. Noah Cameron was awesome in Quad Cities. Had a 3.6 ERA, 58 strikeouts. He goes to Northwest Arkansas. He had 74 strikeouts in 72 and a third innings. ERA was over 6. So that is noteworthy just because the jump from high A to AA is the biggest. And
Sure.
maybe this is a scenario where there's no such thing as a pitching prospect and he fizzles out here. He's, he's more in the mold of like a pie throwing lefty than like an Anthony Veneziano where it's into the upper 90s and, there's some stuff to work with there. So he really has to rely on pinpoint command and getting some swings and misses outside the zone. I hope that he rebounds next year because I bet he's going to repeat AA, kind of like Veneziano did, where he really struggled there. Maybe he bounces back and we're having a different conversation by June of next year, but I just wanted to note that we didn't really talk about him once he went to AA, and not there's a reason why. Now he's only and he's also 24 years old. So that's the other part of this that is like he's getting close to his pitching prime and he's going to be in AA again for his age 25 season. It gets a little dicey there.
Speaking of catchers, shout out Tyler Cropley. Did get his first RBI.
Yeah,
His first hit. Yeah. So shout out to Tyler Cropley. And also I'm looking at the gifts from Pitching Ninja for James MacArthur, and the pitches he got those outs on are absolute filth.
He's pretty nasty. He might be a dude. I have it's not related to any of this at all, but I've been holding on to this question the entire podcast, and we're pretty much at the end, so I just have to ask. If you guys had 6 weeks to like condition your arm and get your form figured out, you step up to a mound and you get 3 attempts to throw as hard as you can, how fast do you think you can throw? How hard can you throw? What would you max out at with your fastball?
6 weeks?
Yeah.
I bet I could get close to like 78 or 80.
You think so? I'd kill to do that.
So at my athletic prime when I was 18 years old, and that's about 40 pounds ago too.
Yeah.
I think I hit 77.
Okay.
So I got about 40 pounds more weight on me. Maybe that helps me get that extra couple miles an hour to 80.
Okay.
I will blow out my UCL in the process.
Sure.
I will throw 80 miles an hour.
You'll have the uptick in velocity right before the injury, just like
exactly.
some guys get.
I'm about 65% or about 65 miles an hour. I'm about 65% sure I'd get about 65 miles per hour. As a kid, as a youth, I could hit 63. Not a youth anymore, but I am a dad, and dad strength is not nothing. So I'm going to spend 6 weeks lifting my children and then studying all the biomechanics to shove around all this weight so it's maximum efficiency, and we're going to shove all that weight towards home plate and going to hit 63 miles an hour.
I'd like to think I could hit 70. I've never thrown a pitch in an actual game. I've stepped on a mound and like effed around with my buddies and stuff like that. Way different than stepping up there with a plan. 6 weeks, I don't know what I could get done then. I'd like to think I could hit 70. I kind of want to step on a mound and just throw a pitch for fun and see if I could hit like 60, 65. I'd like to think I could throw somewhat reasonably okay, but yeah, I kind of want to do this now. So that was my thought.
Should we get with KCSC and do a little training for mini training?
Oh, that'd be so fun. That'd be great cross promotion too. That'd
That
be
would
an off season
We
thing.
spend like a month going and doing workouts. See if we can get Austin. If Austin Cox is around in the off season, get him to help train us as he's rehabbing, and have a little one Royal Way little like pitching Olympics. Do like a full pull down. See what happens.
Oh man, that'd be awesome.
My body would break. It would be
It
broken.
totally would.
It's either that or
That'd be-
driveline. So we need to decide on our squad trip to work on our pitching mechanics and stuff. So
Whichever's closest to the nearest emergency room. That's what I'll go.
I guarantee that if we emailed Kyle Bodie and went, hey, for shits and gigs, my buddies and I want to try and do a little competition. Can we work out for 4 weeks? You go, yeah, probably. Sure, why not?
or you figure out how to block someone's email.
Best
Yeah.
ones come from KCSC.
True that.
No doubt about it.
Oh, absolutely. No, that'd be a ton of fun. We might need to make this happen if we can pull it off.
It's a
All
nice.
right, that's gonna do it for us this week on One Royal Way. We appreciate you guys. We will be back next week. Season's winding down, but we appreciate you guys supporting us. We'll talk to y'all soon.